From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson.
Jr.
Do not forget the Jr. Very important. Remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you are watching us on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. Also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. We hope you stay here. We have a lot of programming as we move into football, basketball overlapped, and then basketball. So just stay here. We're going to have a lot on this Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. So if you found us, thank you. Be sure to tell your friends we are here with this podcast that we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it airs all the time on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. All right, Andre. Wednesday, big day in the work week of an NFL team. It's when the first practice for the next opponent comes in, when you have a Sunday game. Saints are back on the practice field in preparations for the undefeated Buffalo Bills. I checked their stats today. Number 1 in total offense, number 1 in rushing offense, number 5 in passing offense right now. And I think number 1 also in passing defense. So, easy road ahead
right, no
for the New Orleans Saints as they head out to upstate New York, the New York-Canadian border. I didn't realize how close it was this Sunday to face the Buffalo Bills. So, a challenge awaits, there's no doubt about it. But before we get into the big picture today, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, Warren Kincaid, our guy, he was like, you need to go get lined up soon. So,
you did?
Yeah, I went and handled that, got my hair cut, got lined up. You know, the burger comes along with it. So I'm feeling good today. Maybe not feeling as good today are Saints fans coming off that blowout against the Seattle Seahawks and now having to go from the frying pan to the oven or whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
They're going up to Buffalo to play arguably the best team in the NFL, the reigning MVP, a Super Bowl contender year in and year out. So, Sean, we're looking at the Saints and Bucks, but we're looking at one guy specifically today.
Yeah.
And that's head coach Kellen Moore, who came over from the Super Bowl champions. And so far, during his time in New Orleans, he's 0-3. There's been a little criticism of Kellen Moore when it comes to the way he uses his timeouts, the play calling, the certain game decisions. So, Sean, it's incredibly early, but is it maybe time to hit the panic button on Saints head coach Kellen Moore?
All right. I wanted to go here today because it's starting to really make the rounds. You felt it Sunday after the first 2 weeks, which were respectable losses to a debacle where the Saints went out to the West Coast early, did a team bonding boat ride one of the days, and just looked absolutely out of their league against the Seattle Seahawks. So I figured it was a good time to go here today. So should they panic over Kellen Moore? Let me be clear. The answer is no. A big fat no. I understand frustration is high after last week's debacle. It was a total embarrassment, and a lot of that falls on the head coach. His team is undisciplined. He has made some glaring in-game management errors. But come on, guys. He's 3 games into his head coaching career. 3 games into his head coaching career. Gotta give him a chance to grow on the job. Got to give him a little bit longer leash than 3 games as a head coach. That's part of the cost of doing business when you hire the youngest coach in the NFL. Some are going to need a little more time to learn on the job longer than others. It depends on who that coach truly is. So let's start with the big picture. This is why I'm not ready to panic yet because, frankly, the absolute best. If you were looking at the most optimistic Saints fan, the first 3 games of the season, I think the most optimistic Saints fan had them at 1-2. But most realistically, most people had them at 0-3.
Yeah.
Which is exactly where they are. So you have an expectation of doing bad going into the season, and the season starts as bad as you think. I just don't think now is the time to all of a sudden say, got to get rid of the coach, or coach is on thin ice, when he's basically in the spot we all thought he was going to be at this point. So as bad as last week was, they are where we expected them to be through 3 weeks. I thought his personal best effort was probably week 2 against the 49ers. I thought he called a good game, that he learned from a few different mistakes from week 1. But I thought his overall approach to that game was better. The first two games, as we mentioned, were close. The Saints had an opportunity at the end. They didn't finish the job. Last week sucked. I was there, okay? I took that long, let me repeat, long flight to Seattle. If you've ever taken that flight, it does not end. And I took a connection from Dallas to Seattle. I went from New Orleans to Dallas, Dallas to Seattle. And I witnessed that massacre up close and personal. And the logistics of my weekend were not easy. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. It was I've talked to you about it in the sports office. So I was ready to get back. So I was there. I witnessed that massacre. How chaotic that game got so quickly, though, now that we've had a chance to detach and really watch how it all played out, it is a little bit of an outlier. In other words, blowouts happen all the time. And there's probably going to be a few more blowouts the Saints will receive this year. But very few have essentially back-to-back special teams touchdowns in the first quarter on top of an opening drive touchdown. That makes the score 21-0 before you even had a chance to catch your breath. It was 4.5 minutes left in the first quarter, so just over 10 minutes into the game. Even a horrible game played, it doesn't play out like that, and it's when it gets away from you so quickly. Then there's also the cold, hard truth. This is not a good roster. It's not a good roster. The Saints don't have enough top-end players. I don't think it's overall depth. I think it's how good is your roster at its best. We discussed this. We did. We had a podcast on this. How many top 12 players do the Saints, at any position, do the Saints have on this team? You can argue McCoy. AK's probably borderline. Reed, maybe. Even Demario. Those are the four that I have.
Unless you count Taysom Hill being one of one.
Well, Taysom is one of one, but he hasn't been around.
Right.
Not enough talent. Let's just put it that way. Not enough talent. So those are the facts of the case. That's why you shouldn't panic, because there are a lot of things happening, and you gotta bear it. You gotta bear with us. You gotta bear with the team on this one. It's gonna suck. It's going to suck. But those are the circumstances you have to deal with. But please do not get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. I am not defending Moore at all. I'm just saying it's not time to give up on him or panic yet after just 3 games. If it's still a mess and we're getting Seattle efforts by week 10 and you're 0-10, then maybe we can entertain the one-and-done talk when it comes to Kellen Moore, the head coach. I don't think it's going to get to that part. However, there has to be some urgency on Kellen Moore's part. He has to self-evaluate. Certain things are not working. Certain things are unacceptable that need to be fixed right now at this minute. The biggest has got to be the discipline. It's got to be the penalties. You got to start holding guys accountable. You got to start holding guys who keep committing the same infractions. How do you do that? Well, you bench the repeat offenders. I understand that could take one of your best players out the game, but the message has to be sent at some point. 13 penalties and 11 penalties in week 1 and week 3 is unacceptable. Highest penalized team in the league. Second, there has been a ton of talk over the last few days. I was asked about it on the radio yesterday about practice times and practice habits and the training camp schedule. About how short it all seemed to be. And I remember saying at the time how much we all loved the efficient hour and 45-minute, hour and a half practices where you didn't see a whole lot of standing around. You got boom, 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 boom. I also remember saying, if it works and they're healthier longer, then we'll look at this, meaning training camp practice schedule, as the reason why. On the flip side, I remember saying this out loud on our shows. If they start slow, this training camp approach will be the thing everyone points to. And voila, here we are 3 weeks in, likely not going to get better next week. Questioning Moore's approach to camp is what we are doing at this point, which, from what I understand, just talking to a few people, that was created by Ted Rath, new director of sports science, the way he wanted to approach it with the sports science and the recovery. You may not realize who Ted Rath is, but I promise you, if you've been watching the games, you've seen him. He is the most energetic, enthusiastic person on the Saints sideline. After every play, he's tapping a player on his helmet. After every play, he's picking him back up. He's kind of getting the defenders off of him a little bit. That's Ted Rath. If you didn't notice it, just keep in mind that's who it is. And that's really sort of the guy that's really organized the practice schedule that really Kellen Moore has leaned on for that. That could change, But we can't worry about that till next training camp.
Yeah.
In-game management. Okay. We know the first half debacle against the Cardinals. Got to get better. You pointed out, we all pointed out, what is the point of going for a field goal down 38-3 when you're at the, 5-yard line with 3 seconds left?
Exactly.
Try to score a touchdown, please. Bad. All of them need to understand the situation that they're in and strive to improve. But no, Saints fans, this is not the time to panic on Kellen Moore. I can promise you the organization is not panicking on Kellen Moore. The truth is, everyone understands the situation this team is in. This is the painful process they have to go through to hopefully start fresh on the other side. When I say other side, I mean the 2026 season. That's probably what we're looking at right now. What say you?
You know, the question being, is it time to panic on Kellen Moore? No, it's not time to panic yet. Because when it comes down to it, you knew, I knew, and whether y'all wanted to accept it or not, we all knew what this was. We all knew what it was going to be. No, we may not have wanted to admit it. Some people were maybe a little more open to that than others, but 3 games in, like you said, we kind of expected them to be 3-0. I had them as 3-0. You had them as 1-2, you know? So is it a good start? No, but Kellen Moore is the youngest coach in the NFL. He's essentially a rookie head coach. You got to give him time. And when you brought Kellen Moore here, once again, you knew what it was. He's not working with an incredibly talented roster. You mentioned it. There's barely any players who's even in the top 10 or 12 at their position on this roster. You've got unproven players on defense that you're expecting a lot from. You know, Alontae Taylor, he's your cornerback 1. He's never had to be a consistent cornerback 1 in this league. Kool-Aid McKinstry, coming off a rookie season where he still had a lot of work to do, and he's thrust into a really big position where now he's got to be a consistent, you know, contributor, and he struggled with that at times. Pete Werner, a guy we've all been waiting to take that next step forward, hasn't exactly taken it yet. You know, you've got guys on the offensive line, a Cam Jordan playing more snaps than you maybe saw Cam Jordan playing 15 years into the NFL, you know. Brian Brzee trying to get used to a new role and still trying to work out a lot of the kinks, because I mentioned it on Monday. He's been near the quarterback a lot. He has not been able to take the quarterback down a lot. So a lot of unproven players that you're expecting a lot from on defense that you haven't gotten a lot from. Your offensive line that you reevaluated, you bring in the rookie at left tackle, you got your second-year guy over at right tackle where he's more comfortable. You move big Trevor Penning to the interior, and we haven't seen that unit whole yet. You know, you've been dealing with those injuries, and then you've also been dealing with a young quarterback that has shown no sign of being a franchise guy. I mean, and the reality is you may not have a franchise guy on this roster, a franchise quarterback. It's hard as a coach to, win games consistently without a franchise quarterback. Spencer Rattler has not shown to be that. We don't even know if Tyler Shuck is that. I said it a couple months ago. I said it last year. I'm going to keep saying it till they get one. I think the Saints franchise quarterback is not in that locker room. About this time, I think he's probably in a college classroom, maybe taking a test or something. That's where your franchise quarterback is. I don't think it's on this roster. So you look at offensively, you're not great. Defensively, you have not been great. Offensive line, you've been hurt. Special teams, you've been terrible. And we knew all of those things would be the case.
We knew it.
When we brought Kellen Moore in. So no, I'm not going to press the panic button on Kellen Moore. I want to see growth from him at this point. I want to see growth, and I want to see competitive football. Week 1, he made his mistakes, but it was a competitive game. And honestly, it was a more competitive game against the Cardinals than I expected. Week 2, I saw improvement from week 1 to week 2 from Kellen Moore. I think he was great in week 2. Once again, competitive football. Now, you don't pull out the win. Eventually, and I was talking about it with Spencer Rattler, eventually we're going to have to see those wins. Week 3, disappointing. Week 4, probably going to be disappointing. I mean, we know what it is, Saints versus Bills. There's a reason that spread is so high. Week 5, it seems like you'll be playing a rookie quarterback in Jackson Dart. From Kellen Moore, I want to see growth from week to week, from him, from the offense, him as a play caller, him making decisions, and I want to see the Saints play competent, competitive football.
That's all anybody wants.
That's all we want. 3 games in, we've seen little bits and pieces of it, but no, I don't think it's time to press the panic button. Now, if we're here with a 0 in the win column in December, I might be pressing that button.
It might be time.
But I mean, we understand what it is when you bring in a young coach to an untalented team. It wasn't going to be a good year. So far, it hasn't been a good year. Give Kellen Moore time. When you look at it, 90% of this roster, he had nothing to do with bringing here.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't even necessarily have a lot of his guys in yet. So let's give him some time, let him shape this roster, shape the mentality of this roster, the culture of this roster, and see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point. I think until organizationally from top to bottom, they have a belief in a guy at quarterback, which the jury is still out on whoever that could end up being. There's going to always be a feeling a little bit of an incomplete in terms of the score, if you will, for Kellen Moore. I do think there are a couple things. One, the in-game situations, I think, he made the mistake in week 1. I didn't see any glaring in week 2.
Yeah.
Week 3, I hated the going for the field goal. Week 1, I remember I said it almost felt a little too cozy. They were proud of themselves that they lost. I didn't necessarily care for the post-game messaging. Week 2, I love the post-game messaging.
Yeah.
Week 3, I hated the post-game messaging because he said I was proud of the guy's second half fight. It irked me to no end. That was not the circumstance to talk about the second half fight. At no point, a lot of times in a game where it gets away early, you'll see the team that's losing make it close at the end with a few, because the team that's up, they kind of back off, maybe they put their backups in, and you'll see kind of a surge late where maybe they're down 30 throughout the game, but maybe they catch a couple touchdowns at the end, and it's like a 16-point loss. That never happened. That never came close to happening in this game. So I didn't like that. But I do think it's only week 3. It's only 3 games in. I do think there will come a game where his offensive, I don't want to call it genius, but his offensive knowledge and his ability to out-scheme an opponent will show up. Mm-hmm. And then most importantly, it loosens up in October. The schedule becomes much more manageable in October. So let's not push the panic button yet, but let's make sure that the urgency is there, because you don't want to just take this whole season for granted and just coast. Now you want to show some improvement to show some level of competitiveness that I think everyone at least deserves. No, this is the NFL. No one should expect or appreciate or like double-digit losses. It's just on a consistent basis. That can't happen. So hopefully this one got out of their system. There's probably 1 or 2 on the way down the pike a little bit, but right now it's time to learn from the Seattle loss. Yeah,
there might be one this coming week. But before we get to that, you kind of touched on it. Next year is not always promised, whether you're a player or a coach. There may not always be a next year. I think back to New England last season. Right. They hired Gerard Mayo, someone who came up in their system, someone very familiar with their ownership and all of that. And he had a bad year 1, and they got him up out of there. So you bring Kellen Moore here thinking, it's going to be a multi-year thing, and I think it should be a multi-year thing for Kellen Moore to give him time, because once again, we knew what it was, but you have a year bad enough, you never know. But you mentioned, some big losses potentially on the way. This is projected to be a big loss this week against the Bills. The spread, depending where you look at it, in some places it's 15.5. It started at 16.5. It's as high as 17 in other places. And Sean, I'm sure the Saints see that. They see a spread that wide, and it's very rare in the NFL for a spread to be that wide in a game. Do you think that could galvanize this team at all?
I hope so, because not only have the Saints lost all 3 games, they haven't covered. They're 0-3 against the spread, and I'm not a big spread guy, and is that a judge on how good or bad your team is? But I know it's a big, part of sort of the discussion, if you will, around a football game. So it is something that pops up. I'm not sure how much they discuss it inside the locker room, but this is one of the biggest underdogs. They're one of the biggest underdogs in the last couple seasons, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's very hard to be a double-digit underdog in the NFL. Even harder to be almost a 2-score underdog, a 2-touchdown underdog, excuse me. And this is, I guess if it counts a 2-point conversion, it's almost more than two touchdowns. So what I would say is this. If you're the Saints, now the discussion has now become, is this the worst team in the league? You've got to take that personally. Because no matter how bad or how challenging the circumstances are, or how short you feel like you are with your players, you don't want that label, and you don't want that discussion. And that's going to be the talking point all week. If you can't get motivated by that, there's a problem. So to me, this is indicative of the national discussion on the Saints, where it's, at one point in time, you were a contender. Now they're talking about you as the worst team in the NFL. No one, absolutely no one, not even Drew, is going to pick the Saints to win this game, okay? No one. But to me, coming off the game you just had, it's actually, I don't want to say the pressure is off, but I do think if you go to Buffalo and compete, you can recreate some of that good energy. You can get some good vibes back. I don't think they're going to go to Buffalo and win, but I don't think it's out of the question to say they can battle them enough to maybe sneak in and cover. And if you cover, you go into Buffalo after the week you just had and play competitive football, and you come back home for the start of a new month, maybe you can reset things and just get, and kind of maybe jump start the energy, so to speak, and move into the next quarter of your season. So that's where I'm at with it. To me, this spread is indicative of the national discussion around the Saints organization. And there are so many prideful guys in that organization. Cam, DeMario, Taysom, you name it. They don't want that label. Do something about it. Go out and play it. No one's expecting you to win. But this is going to be one of those where you might be able to take pride in a moral victory. If you go in and you maybe lose by 10 points or 8 points or whatever it is.
Yeah, the last 3 weeks I've been in here and I've had the same message against the Cardinals. I said, you know what? This is a winnable game. Against the Niners, I said, this is a very winnable game. I said the Niners was the most winnable game they'd find. Seattle, even though the Saints made them look elite, Seattle was an average team. That was a winnable game.
Yep.
This is not a winnable game.
It's not.
This is a winnable game in the sense of, any given Sunday,
right,
they put their socks on just like we put our socks on. Or we've got a puncher's chance. Outside of that, this is not a game you would expect the Saints to win. I mean, look at the spread itself, the 16.5 that I mentioned. That's the 17th largest spread in the last 10 years. If you take the 17-point spread, which is in some places, that's the 9th largest spread in the last
There's been spreads higher than that? Wow.
I think it was the Miami was like a 28-point underdog. Okay. I don't even know how
some of those spreads get lopsided when injuries pile up at the end of the year.
Exactly,
but this early, I should say.
This is one of the worst spreads in the last 10 years, and you can see why. I mean, in the last 3 weeks, Baltimore scored the Bills scored 41 points against Baltimore, another potential Super Bowl contender. They put 30 on the Jets. They put 31 on the Dolphins. Meanwhile, the Saints have scored 13 against Arizona, 21 against the banged-up Niners team, and 13 in the back end against Seattle. So you can see why this is expected to be so lopsided. So if you're the Saints, whatever you got to draw motivation from, take it. If you want to say, nobody believes in us, nobody's counting on us, they think we can't go to Buffalo and win, we're going to show them. They saying we the worst team in the league, yada, yada, yada. If that's what it takes, do that, because you've got a lot of older players on this team. I know Cam Jordan in, year 15, doesn't want to be on an 0-4 ball team. DeMario Davis, towards the tail end of his career, he doesn't want to be on an 0-4 team. Justin Reed, he chose to come to New Orleans. He doesn't want to be on a losing team.
Of course not.
Spencer Rattler, I gave you the numbers Wednesday.
He doesn't want that.
Exactly. He's on one of the worst starts of any quarterback in recent history. I know he's tired of hearing 0-6, 0-7, 0-8, 0-9. He doesn't want to hear 0-10, which would be the second worst start in the last 15 years from any quarterback. Alvin Kamara, who's blatantly said he could have gone other places, but he wanted to stay loyal to New Orleans. They don't want to start 0-4. They want to go up there. They want to be competitive. They think they can win. And it's not impossible. I mean, we just saw the Packers, who looked like the best team in the league through 2 weeks, lose to the Browns in week 3. Nobody had the Browns beating the Packers in week 3. The Colts had Danny Pennies, who's now looking like Indiana Jones hunting down NFL teams. The Colts are 3-0. Nobody expected the Colts to be 3-0. They're supposed to be down here with the Saints. Nothing's impossible in this league. You've got a motivated team, motivated players, a lot of people looking down on them and counting, them out of this. You've got a lot of people with chips on their shoulders, whether it's the old players, the young players, the rookie head coach. So, nothing's impossible, but I can certainly see why the spread is this large. And if I was a betting man, which I am, I might even take the minus 15.5 of Buffalo.
Okay.
Because it's been tough.
I went and looked on. I wasn't checking out on what you were saying when I checked my phone. I wanted to check the Bills' schedule. Look, I'm looking for any glimmer of hope here. Okay. So they're coming off of a mini bye.
Yeah,
never a good
long
thing.
week.
They played an AFC opponent. They catch the Saints. It's their first daytime home game, I think, of the season. I remember, for some reason, I remember Al Michaels mentioning something about that in the broadcast, how the Bills fans were excited.
Yeah, they've won their last 12 home games, too.
Yeah, so they get a daytime home game because next week they play the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. Is it possible you catch your Super Bowl contending team in a little bit of a sleepwalk where they kind of look ahead a little bit, maybe a little bit of a trap game? Again, I told you I'm reaching here. I'm trying to find something. Maybe, the lowly Saints, team we don't play very often, 0-3, look horrible. We're contenders. We just show up and win and get out of there coming off the mini bye. Maybe. But to me, if you're the Saints, you got to look at that spread and say, enough's enough. We've got to do something about this. Under no circumstances should us, this group of professionals, these guys, a lot of guys on the team that have accomplished a lot. They got a couple guys with rings in that locker room. Yeah. Heck no. Absolutely not. It stops today. It stops today. No one is expecting to win, but I do expect a much more competitive effort in this game. Even if they lose something like 30-17, if there's a competitiveness about it, then I think at this stage of the game, you would take that. So we'll see how it goes. We'll hear from Kellen Moore a little bit later today, depending on what time you watch this pod. And then off they go to Buffalo on Saturday. All right, we got to get out of here. That'll do it. Hope you enjoyed that. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.